Hey guys, Walt with TAV here. We're putting another one on its way home here soon. This one's a local client. This is a 2015 TRD PRO Tundra Crew Max, and we wanted to kind of go from the top down on this one and kind of show you what we did with this one. This is what would be considered our stage one, but why we would use a stage one. So he had a four-wheel camper in this one, and we'll just kind of, he already had the camper in it, but we wanted to set it up to support the weight of the camper and actually be quite a bit more functional off-road. So starting from the top down, we'll kind of show you what we're doing here with this one. So for storage on this truck, on the roof rack, it's a Prince-U Designs roof rack. It's pretty much empty with the exception of the WeBoost reach, drive reach. That's kind of one of the units that we've been using on pretty much all these trucks. It's a good low profile unit that you can kind of collapse down. Other than that, it's just an empty roof rack. But you can see the four-wheel camper that he's running on this. I'm not sure what the weight is of this one. It's the Raven, so it's kind of spacious inside with kind of more of a minimalist setup on the inside. And then he's got all of his equipment to where you can just take it out. So like tables and things like that is just in the back here. The kind of quickly moving down from there, because we didn't do the camper, that was something he already had in it. What we did put on was the Victory 4x4 rear bumper, and because the four-wheel camper sticks out past where the tailgate would and it kind of covers up where the bumper would be, you can't really run a typical tire carrier on this. So we're running the rigged swing out tire carrier on a receiver hitch extension out of the hidden hitch that's on this bumper. So this bumper can come with like a hidden hitch, and it's way up in behind the bumper, and you would access the receiver from where the license plate is. On this one, we actually moved the license plate out to the side because this is just going to stay in place. We've got it bolted through on the inside behind the bumper, so it's not intended to be taken off really quickly. And with it being bolted the way it is, holds it really tight without it wobbling around inside the receiver, so it's really solid. There is a little bit of flex, but that's in the material itself, not in movement in the hitch. And rigged is, I think this is one of the strongest tire carriers that is a insertable style, receiver hitch style tire carrier. Definitely my favorite one out there. Very modular, because on this one, it's kind of like a two-step process to open it. You undo your handle, which is their design, and I love it. And then there's a pin you can pull from right back here, and then just let it hang, and you can swing the whole thing out of the way. You can open this thing up 180 degrees because it stands out far enough away from the truck where your tire's not going to hit it. And you can drop down your table. There's a cutting board on here that you can actually slide out. So you have a little table here, and then you can slide your cutting board out to here. Kind of open up a lot of good cooking space, whatever you want to use this for. And this sits in behind the tire, which is not wasted space. So a lot of times if you have like a swing out or a receiver hitch mounted tire carrier, you've got a tire sticking out here, but you have nothing in behind it. They made really good use of space, and this is very modular. You can set this up kind of any way you want. You got a little panel here, you can mount stuff too. So I really love the design of this stuff. You guys did a good job setting this up. All right, moving around to the front, you've probably seen these bumpers on some of our other builds. This is the C4 Fab Overland series front bumper, and we typically run Baja designs on these because we can fit an LP9 and an LP6 really nice inside this hoop. And we get a little creative sometimes with the bracketry to kind of keep everything away from the grill, but these lights just fit really nice in here, and you can get a really good, large amount of light output with less lights by doing something like this. So as you can see, kind of down low in the bumper, we're also running Baja Design Squadron Pros as the factory fog light replacement, and that's run off of the factory fog light switch. Inside the cab, you'll see the switches for the LP9 and the LP6. They're a 3-position switch. So you have a low power, which is the bottom 3 diodes, and then you have a high power, which is all the diodes. And you also have on the 6s and the 9s, you have side lights that come on as well. All of these have an amber backlight. Like, so if you're just driving and you have your regular headlights on, you'll just see an amber backlight coming from these, which is really nice to have for oncoming traffic. For the winch, we're running the Come Up Slimline series. This is a 12.5 thousand pound winch, and physically it's the same size as the 9.5, but it's just a more powerful winch. So we just tend to run the most powerful winch we can fit in there. And it's really nicely tucked out of the way. And it's a wireless remote winch as well. All right, and protecting the front diff on this truck is the aluminum RCI skids in raw aluminum. And sometimes we'll powder coat them, depends on what the client wants, but the raw aluminum tends to look really nice too. All right, finishing off the body armor on this one, we're running the CBI sliders, and it's a flat slider, so it acts as a step, you know, when the doors are closed. And you got a little bit more room when the doors are open, but it's a nice size step. And it's not too large to where it sticks way out off the side of the truck. It just it creates a nice surface for anything coming up off the ground, off the tires, you know, kicking up against the rocker panel. You can kind of see where there's a little bit of a splash from a puddle. If, you know, you're going to be having rocks or something come up off of the tires, it's going to be hitting the bottom of the slider rather than the rocker panel. All right, and the reason we were going from top down on these walk-arounds now is to show you how much the truck has to carry, how much weight is in this truck, and why that's important is because it translates into what the suspension's job is. The suspension has to support the load of the truck. It has to support the weight of the truck. Once it's standing still, that's the leaf spring's job, and the coil spring's job is to keep it up off of the ground to where you have correct compression and rebound travel in your suspension. The shock's job is to dampen that, what's happening on the ground, into the chassis of the truck, controlling it once it's moving. So they work together. So on this system, we call this our stage 1 system because it is a stock width control arm. The lower control arm is still used. We can do a Total Chaos lower control arm, that is the stock length. It is a far stronger control arm, but with our stage 1, we stay stock width on the front and rear suspension. So, but we increase our front suspension travel slightly by doing an upper control arm from Total Chaos and a extended travel coilover from either King or Radflow. On this truck, we're running Kings, and every set of shocks on these trucks are custom valved and custom built for the truck's use and needs. So same thing with our spring rates. So this is a stage 1 stock width, and on these Tundras it fits a 35-inch tire perfectly without a whole lot of work going into some trimming and stuff like that. So moving back, you'll be able to see where we do our body mount chop on the front and how we box that back in. We make all of these plates ourselves by hand because we like to curve the way the body mount is cut, and we like to weld in our own plates and then shape it as we're building it. But then we also do more work to the inner fender liner, or to the inner fender, so we have to trim the inner fender liner out and make our own out of our own templates and ABS plastic to create a much stronger fender liner, so you don't have anything flopping around or moving around and vibrating on the inside, and it also seals everything up and protects it, creating a lot more room for this 35-inch tire. And moving into wheels and tires, we're running the 17 by 8.5 inch bead grip 703 from Method Race Wheels. So this is the Method 703, and we are running the 35 1250 17 Toyo Open Country Mud Terrain, and it's just a very, very good handling tire. This truck is from New Mexico, so it sees a lot of dirt road use, a lot of rock use, a lot of highway. It sees a little bit of everything. So this is a very, very well-rounded tire. So because of the weight of this truck, this client wanted to upgrade the brake system, and one of the companies we work with is called Alcon, and not to be confused with Alcan springs. This is Alcon brakes, and it is a massive caliper and rotor. But the cool thing about this is we can still run a 17-inch wheel. So it's calipers and rotors front and rear, and if you were to look at the rotor compared to a stock rotor, it is much thicker, much thicker, and the calipers are much stronger than the factory caliper. This brake system is designed for up-armored vehicles like Land Cruisers and things like that overseas. So it's designed to be stopping a lot of weight, and this thing stops butter smooth. It's really nice. So because we changed the tire size in this truck to 35 and he's carrying a lot of weight, we changed the gear ratio to a 488 gear ratio, and we introduced electric lockers front and rear. We like to use these Eaton e-lockers because we don't have to worry about airlines or anything like that with the ARB lockers. We've had really good results with all these Eaton e-lockers we've been using. So just a push of a button and you've got selectable locker front and rear and 488 gears. It keeps us 35 just running at a really nice cruising RPM on the highway. And I'm kind of moving into the rear suspension though. As you can see, we're running a custom leaf spring pack from Alcan spring. It's a progressive rate spring, so you're not dealing with an overload spring to limit your compression travel as it articulates. And we are also running a floating airbag setup. So he can fine tune the spring rate above and beyond what this spring rate is in the leaf springs. If he adds a ton of water or a trailer or any other weight to this thing, he can just pump a little bit of air in the airbags and individually left to right and get the truck to sit to where it's not squatting in the rear or it's not leaning one side or the other. And so kind of complementing that is a 12-inch stroke King custom smooth body shock with a remote reservoir and a high-speed compression dampener. That is kind of a personal preference. As you're driving and the road conditions change and you want maybe a little bit more high-speed compression dampening, you can just turn that knob click by click and control the amount of resistance you get in your shock as it compresses at a high speed. So if you have a little G out on the highway or something like that and you're heavy and you don't want to slam off your bump stops, that's where you can kind of fine-tune that and make it feel really nice and planted. The Archive Garage U-bolt flip kit and bump stop system is what we're using to connect the spring to the axle, and then the Total Chaos shock relocation kit gets welded onto the frame, and the factory shock location is cut off of the axle, and then the Total Chaos unit is welded into place. So it's a far stronger setup, and we can kind of dictate where we want the base of the shock to be on the axle surface itself. So we can kind of tweak those locations as well as we go. And something else that adds a little bit of weight to the truck is this 46-gallon LRA long-range tank. So it goes right into the factory location, and it doesn't hang down any lower than the factory tank. It's just a lot larger. It's longer, and it's a really great tank to have in these trucks. Your cruising range is probably 500 miles in this thing. It's nice to have. All right, so a lot of the stuff that was done on the inside of the truck was done by the client himself, but what we did do was we like to use this little like business card holder area to put switches, but in this case these are the switches for the Eaton e-lockers. So it's a rocker switch that can't inadvertently be operated, so you can't really push down on it and have it work. You have a little safety button here, you just push back, it's spring loaded, you push it back and then down, and that turns the locker on. So you want to get to a situation you feel like you're going to have tire spin, you're going to climb and articulate your suspension, you just lock your locker, drive through your scenario, and then you just reach down and turn it off, and then you can drive like normal. Super easy to deal with, super easy to get to, and it's not really in the way. And that's another reason why we like to put these switches where they are. This is the LP9 and LP6 switches, so you have a low and a high all the way back, and it's a good positive click. So that's off, and then depending on how the client wants it, you can have low power or high power is all the way back. So while you're driving in the Tundras, I really like this location because when I drive with my arm on the console, but if I have to use this up here in northern New Mexico at night, we have elk and deer and everything else, horses, cows. I will usually run these if we're way up in the mountains somewhere or we're running north, and I'll have my hand right on the switch to where if I see car headlights coming around a bend or over a hill, I can turn this off really quickly so I'm not blinding the person coming at me. And it's just really nice location to have these, and it's out of the way. It's not impeding on your cup holders or anything else. It's just kind of right where it needs to be, right at your fingertips. One thing we do on a lot of these trucks is we put an anti-theft device in here, and it's not a car alarm, it just kills your ignition system. So the truck still has power, but when you get to a place where you park your truck at night, we put a Revelco anti-theft device in. It's just a fob that mounts up under here, and you literally just pull out a keyed fob like this. You get two of these with this, and it just goes in one way. So This one, in this case, the writing is upside down in here because of how it's mounted in here. So if you know the writing's upside down, there's a little guide right here. You just put it right back in and you just push it in, it's good to go. So if you're going to park somewhere, just pull that out with you, take it to the when you go to the airport or something like that, and you literally have to pick the truck up off the ground to steal it. All right, so really the only thing that we did under the hood for this truck is running the SDHQ ARB air compressor mount. It's a really nice strong bracket that just kind of puts the compressor in a good usable spot under the hood, and kind of keeps everything nice and clean. And then the other thing we tend to do is hide the control box away. You can kind of see this one is in behind the grill, and you can access that, you know, if you need to, just go in right through the top of the grill. But we move the button off of the control box to right here, and you can just turn that on. You'll hear it start looking for the wireless remote. Press and hold the button on the wireless remote, and it goes to a flat sound, and then it's connected. So that just gives it power. All right, and that pretty much wraps it up for this truck. Hopefully you're able to get something out of this one. And if you've got any other questions though on any of the trucks that we're doing these walkarounds on, please just shoot us a comment in the section or give us a call at the shop, and or hit us up on Instagram. Instagram's at TAVLLC. Our website is tavllc.com, and obviously YouTube channel here is Tactical Application Vehicles. And the best way to reach us though is to send us an email through the contact page on our website, tavllc.com, and that comes directly to me and the guys up front, and we can definitely get back to you and get whatever information you need. So appreciate it. Make sure you give us a thumbs up and a like, and catch us on the next one.